Hello and welcome to Founded, a Pleasant Phantom production where we find the stories you missed in history class. I'm Tori Phantom, and joining me today is no other than Gwenna Lathland.
Hi.
Hi. And today we'll be discussing how the actions of the British government, those loyal to the crown, and the merchant elite destroyed families. Specifically, one family today, an important family. And they were not important because of the money or fame they had. They were important because of what their family name came to be known for in posterity.
Was it beer?
No.
Okay.
Well, kind of. Anyway. To the best of your knowledge, when did the American Revolution begin?
Okay. So, to the best of my knowledge, the war began in 1776. The revolution, I think, was sometime
1775. The war began in 75. Oh my God. Gwenna.
To the best of my knowledge, the revolution itself probably began somewhere in the 50s or 60s of the 18th century.
It's up for debate,
because, like,
honestly.
I know it was a long, drawn out. We were getting mad over a long amount of time before we finally bottled up all those emotions, snapped, and started a whole war.
Right. So you were close with when the war began, and so that is why we're talking about pre-war stuff, because they didn't just decide to go to Lexington Green one day. So where did the American Revolution begin?
Just because I'm petty, I'm going to say most of the problems started in Boston. It's almost always Boston's fault in this period of time.
Was it their fault or were they reacting? There's a line.
But
everyone is the hero in their own story.
All the hotheads and the people with the testes to stand up and be like, not like this. I swear most of them were from Boston. I know they weren't all, but if I were pinned into where did it begin? Boston?
Massachusetts, yeah. And why did the American Revolution begin?
No taxation without representation.
You passed the 4th grade social studies quiz. Good job. Kind of. But why were they so mad about taxes? Is that really what they did a whole war for? That's always the question that I ask when I look at the way that history is presented is, that seems like a really silly reason to go to war. I feel like there's more to that story.
Look, I have not actually found a good reason to go to war, but they're often more complex.
Same. But when we learn about the American Revolution in school, we learn that they did a whole war because they weren't being representation while being taxationed. I purposely said that wrong on purpose.
All right. So, you talk for a living, Tori.
I know. Okay. Next question. Who was at the heart of the American Revolution? Can't even say revolution today.
So I know there wasn't a who. There were a whole bunch of who's. And that's not even because I've talked to you for a long time. There were a whole bunch of who's, several of the who's had very different reasons for working together with each other to not be British anymore.
Good job. That was a trick question. But who was the father of the American Revolution?
Samuel Adams, and I only know that because he told me last episode.
Yes. I was just making sure you were retaining the knowledge. Attention. That is my own gauge of my success here, that you remembered that.
Wait, do I have to do a periodic quiz on this show? Dang it.
Well, now you do, because you just gave me the idea.
Talented. The kid in my head who's the gifted and talented kid was like, I must make an A+.
You will be graded. So,
what? It's evil.
What do you think radicalized Samuel Adams?
Slaves. The existence of them. Slaves,
slavery. He actually was a vehement abolitionist. Fun fact, that's not really
actually,
a fun fact.
A bunch of the founding fathers were abolitionists. They were just really bad at it and terrified.
We are going to get fully into that later. That is never going to just be a one episode thing. It will continuously come up. But Samuel Adams, when he got married, his new mother-in-law gifted them a slave, and he threw an entire tantrum. And then he
For the record, people cannot be gifts.
Exactly. Yes, that's exactly what he said. And he immediately freed her. And then she worked for money for his family and he provided her a home. And she was free. She was emancipated immediately. So
thanks, Sam Adams, for not being a steaming pile of cow dung.
Yes. And so we are starting today with the Adams family.
Do-do-do-do.
Not Wednesday related. We're actually going to be starting. You remember we were talking about Fort Necessity and Jumonville's.
I was going to say, like, we went from George Washington being a bad general. He wasn't even a general at the time, but being a bad military leader to Sam Adams. Like, that feels like a sudden jump.
Yeah. And we're going to be jumping around because we're going to be learning about these different people and how they ended up connected and doing the things they did that you've heard about. And so when we were talking about George Washington, do you remember the time period?
It was 1750s.
Yes. So now we're going to be jumping back to 1740s because we are starting with the father of a founding father who is the father of the American Revolution.
That was a lot of fathers.
I know. I wanted to see how many times I could fit it in a sentence and still have it make sense. So
I'm not sure. That might have been one too many.
I don't know. We'll see. So Samuel Adams.
Mm-hmm. If his father's name was Samuel Adams.
His father's name was Samuel Adams.
Dang it!
So, Samuel Adams Sr., father of Samuel Adams. And this is
didn't like to be called Sam.
Right. And this is a true riches to rags story. I need to tell you, I had no intention of this being the episode. But as I was doing all of my research through all my sources, I was looking for a specific bit of information. And then I was like, no, we have to talk about the land bank debacle. So
did you just say the land bang?
Bank? Land bank debacle. Okay. So we're going to create a timeline.
Okay.
And we're going to start. And this has nothing to do with anything. I found this in my research and thought it was interesting. The first time,
the number of times I feel like we're going to have to do a tally of this has nothing to do with anything. It's just interesting. Just ding.
Yes, I support this. So the first ever revolt against British authority actually happened in 1687. There was a tax revolt.
The Tudor historian
Ipswich.
in me would like to. It's not the first time.
Well, I mean, in the colonies. Colonies. There was in 1687.
Let me tell you about the War Roses, all right?
I mean, I would love to hear that. Read a book and tell me about it on Bibliophage. So, in 1687, in Ipswich, Massachusetts Bay Colony, there was a tax revolt. That's all I know about it. I didn't look deeper. I was busy reading about the land bank. I just wanted you to know that. I thought it was interesting. So
I know about a tax revolt in Boston around that same time. Was it the bread riots? I know about the bread riots.
It might have been. We're gonna have to come back.
We'll talk about the bread riots. I know about the bread riots in Boston.
So 1687, there is a tax revolt. 1689, Samuel Adams Sr. is born.
Okay.
1722, Samuel Adams Jr. was born. All right. That's the Samuel Adams we know about.
Okay.
Okay. So now here's the important time period. Between 1735 and 1745, the Massachusetts economy started to fail. The prices were up, value of money down, and then the Boston ports were deprioritized for the less expensive ports. And they were also crushed by taxes, and they had a shortage of currency. Like they didn't have silver or gold or anything.
Okay, so at this point, was it purely the British pound,
yes,
or did we have colonial currencies at this point?
We just had British currency.
Okay.
And so they just had a shortage of currency, and the economy is failing, unemployment is up. And so industry and currency, they're controlled by Britain. And so there was like this act passed in the 30s, the 1730s.
Uh-huh.
In order to try to stimulate the economy, they had these bills of credit, right?
You know, I feel like, I know we're talking about the 1700s, but like, I feel like I've already lived this.
You say history repeats itself.
I feel like I've lived this exact thing.
Yeah, I know.
Continue.
And so these bills of credit, were temporary. So they were only going to last. They were only going to be able to issue them until
this was
1741.
This was the 18th version of stimmy checks.
Yes, these were stimulus checks.
They got their stimmy checks rolling. All right, got it. But they're only going to be getting stimmy checks till 1741.
Yes.
Okay.
And so the royal governor, John Belcher, is looking for solutions.
Okay.
So in the colonies, they did have colonial governments, right? So they were run by the royal governor, but there were elected officials from the colonies. And so
parliamentarian style?
Yes.
Okay.
Except they were looked down upon because they were the colonists. So the royal governor, John Belcher, is looking for solutions, and he is talking to the Massachusetts House. And he's like, let's brainstorm. We got any ideas? What's going on? What can we do here? Because things are already bad and they're about to get worse. And so then the idea of the land bank is formed and endorsed by Belcher. Now I need you to remember that. He thought this was a great idea.
Good idea.
Yes. So the royal governor is all for the land bank. He's like, this is going to be so good for us.
Now, for the record, royal governors more or less spoke with the authority of not the king, but with Britain.
They spoke with authority of the crown. So it was like the crown is parliament and the king.
So if Belcher is saying, this land bank is a great idea, that's as good as King George saying, bank the land.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. And so Samuel Adams Sr. was one of 9 directors for the land bank. Okay. And the 9 directors, like Samuel Adams was rich and he was a brewer, right? But everyone else was kind of common people. So you had shipbuilders, merchants, mill owners, iron manufacturers. There was an admiralty judge, a militia captain. And 6 of them were members of the House of Representatives, and all but 1 were justice of the peace. Okay. So what the land bank did is they realized
out there collecting jobs.
You have no idea. So then we'll get into the corruption later. So
I know it's impossible to diagnose historical figures, but there's a 0% chance 0% of them weren't neurodivergent.
Right. And so because they, it was a cool thing to, here's my regular job. And also I'm serving.
Also, I'm a justice of the peace and I'm on the council and the privy. And I don't know, there's a whole bunch of words that just like throwing around.
It was all the connections, right? That's what power was. That's how you got your power. And so the land bank recognized that New England was poor in cash, but rich in land. And so the land bank issued paper bonds secured by the land. And immediately...
So in slightly different terms, we used to have a gold backed. For every dollar, there was an equal amount of gold that represented that dollar. We don't do that anymore in the United States. But at this point, they're like, well, we don't have any silver. We don't have any gold. We don't have any cool stuff. We got dirt. Yes. So the dollar is defined by the value of this dirt.
Exactly.
So if you have 5 acres, that means you have $500. I'm just making up numbers, but
yes, that is essentially pretty much how it was working, right? And especially because the land was worth so much, right? You had so many people from Great Britain immigrating to the colonies because they knew that they could make a name for themselves. They would have land, which would give them power. So this was honestly a brilliant idea, right? And it was immediately popular. Yeah. Like immediately 400 men from 64 towns pledged properties as capital. And the land bank issued loans at a modest interest rate, which were redeemable in 20 years. And in 1740, the first bills were issued, and there were over 1,000 subscribers. Okay, so this eased monetary issues, and it stimulated manufacturing. Like we're talking farmers.
So listen, if the land bank could have 1,000 subscribers, I feel like Founded could too. Just hit that subscribe button.
Yeah, that's a good plug. Smooth. I could never do that. So
I can.
So we're talking like farmers are using this to improve their land and their equipment. We're saying like silversmiths are using this. Like this is the commoners, right? If we're talking about the social hierarchy at the time, these are the regular people, not the elites, who are using this to be able to feed their families and to work on their businesses. And so over 150,000 pounds, not pounds of paper, pounds as in the British money,
Right.
was circulated. Okay. Now, I need you to know that the land bank only lasted 16 months. So that's a lot of money of the time to be circulated. So it was really popular in the provincial towns, and it was equally hated by the merchant elite class. Because
because now we've got a whole bunch of commoners who aren't exactly common anymore. Because another important thing to remember at this point, you had no political voice if you did not own land.
Because the way the patriarchal society worked at the time was if you could not own land, work, do whatever the case may be. So we're looking even in a nuclear family, right? If you had the wife and the children, they are considered dependents on the father figure. And so he's the one who has the power and the right to vote, but only if he owned land, right?
Right.
So
this land bank opening up is not only, helping the economy a bunch, it's creating a whole bunch of new voices and power.
Yes. And you have to think these merchant elites, they are trading with Britain, and they don't want to settle their debt with untried currency. And this currency is worthless to English creditors. And so this elite class.
Really? This money is based on the value of land all the way across the ocean? Neat.
Yeah. Yeah. And so they, of course, big shock here in, we're talking Massachusetts Bay Colony, a economic issue very quickly became a political issue. And so they start protesting, and they're like screaming that it's illegal and it's going to cause inflation. And there's all these problems with the poor people having the money. And so by the end of 1740, over 135 merchants refused to accept it. At which point
basically makes it not money anymore. It's that thousands of people have decided this is money. And then when the merchant class went, nuh-uh, you can't buy anything with this, it made it not money.
Yes and no, because they were still, the people who had it are still using it with each other and in these provincial towns.
Yeah, but then it becomes sort of like mine currency or
isn't that all currency is?
Yeah, well, but it becomes like company currency where you can only use it in the company stores.
Yes.
And you can only give it to people who also shop in the same company store.
Yeah. Yeah. And so at this point, because the rich elite are really up in arms and mad about it, our buddy Royal Governor John Belcher pancakes, he flip-flops, and he starts to oppose the land bank because of the rich people backlash. So
eat the rich.
Honestly. And so this man doesn't just go from, I support this is a great idea, to no, this is bad. He goes crazy about this. Okay. So he starts writing about it. He writes letters. He's publishing articles, and he's like, the bank offers further proof that the colonists have been deranged for 2 decades.
Deranged?
Yes.
The language of the 18th century is probably my favorite period to listen to people communicate.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh. If Twitter had existed back then, it would have been unhinged.
They didn't need Twitter. They just started their own newspapers.
The Reynolds pamphlet.
And so he says that they're deranged. This is clearly a sign that they've been deranged for 2 decades. And in that time, they seem to have studied how they could provoke the king and his ministries. So he appeals.
We're 80% of them illiterate in this period of history.
Yes. So he appeals to the House of Representatives to prohibit the land bank bills. And they're like, nah, man, we're cool with it, right? Because these are people who are elected.
Right. And these 1,000 people, again, banks make money from interest rates. So if this imaginary money based on the value of land has loans taken out against it, then people are having to pay those loans back with the interest. They're making money.
And you have to think, too, how many people who are serving in these legislatures put their land up.
Right.
As a part of it, right? So they're all like, no, we're not going to prohibit this. So he throws a bigger tantrum. So now it's 74.
Just complete crash out at this point.
Literally, he was totally crashing out. Okay. So it's 1741, and he warned against accepting or extending land bank notes to the citizens, right? Because he is the royal governor. And so he forbade anyone with royal commission from doing business with the bank. Justices of peace who subscribed should consider themselves relieved of duty.
Weren't like 6 of them were justices of the peace, yeah?
Well, those are the directors. Subscribers are people who used it. But yes, 8 of them who were on the board were justices of the peace. So Samuel Adams Sr., he resigned before he could be dismissed. And then Belcher,
good move.
Yeah, Belcher worked harder to destroy the bank. He said taverns would lose their licenses, told militia officers to purge the miscreants from their ranks. He forbade lawyers associated with the bank from pleading before the council. He sent urgent messages to Parliament asking them to formally dissolve the land bank and warned them that it would be a subversion of the government and ruin of the country to allow it to continue. He endorsed it.
Yeah.
He's the reason it was able to become a thing.
That back pedal must have been whirring the whole time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And so the people
what's most fascinating to me about this whole thing is this one dude had the power to do all of that. He set up a thing. He endorsed the thing at least, and then went, never mind. And not only am I not going to let it continue to be a thing, despite tons of people that I am in charge of being fiscally requiring this, like they are dependent on this system to pay their bills and their taxes to him and the king. Yeah. But then he's like, I'm actually going to ruin a whole bunch of lives over this one thing that I thought was a good idea once upon a time.
I need you to know it's about to get worse.
Oh, good.
Yes, everything you said.
Why did we rebel against Britain? This is why.
Why do you think I'm telling you this story? Because this is only one of them. So Belcher then continues, and he says that the land bank was so destructive to good order and to the liberties and properties of the king's subjects, even though there was nothing illegal about it. Nothing about this was actually illegal. He just wanted to please the rich,
just poor
right?
People getting unpoor.
Yes.
Oh, no.
Oh, it's awful. And so the people who opposed the land bank were calling for the directors to be prosecuted. And so then Belcher writes a long letter, a very long letter, fully crashing out to his political protege about how awful the bank was and how it would lead to ruin and how the House seemed to think itself on par with Parliament. And he didn't trust the Massachusetts House with a pair of old shoes, which is like a random thing to include. And then he...
Bring back 18th century insults.
Yeah.
Like, that's my new campaign.
We're just going to start telling.
I would not trust you with a pair of old shoes.
Yeah. Like, that's so good, isn't it?
I'm using it.
Yeah.
That's going in the same catalog of you absolute shoebox and about as useless as a piece of damp cardboard.
Yeah. It's great. It's great. And so that he warned his protege to steer clear of government that seems to have gone rogue. And so bringing up his protege is actually really important because his protege was no one other than Thomas Hutchinson, who would become...
I know this now because you explained it to me the other day. He was like a supervillain in the ultimate scheme of the war, yeah?
Well, yes and no. He was a loyalist, and he also held like 5 or 6 different jobs in government at the same time, which we will get to Thomas Hutchinson at a later date here. But there were good things about him. And so, like with any of these people, you can't just put them in the category of good or bad. They were people who made good and bad decisions that affected people in good and bad ways. Now, some people you absolutely can just call them bad, of course. But Thomas Hutchinson is a complicated person to consider.
All right. So back to the land bank. Yes. We'll get to Thomas. He gets his own time.
So he sends this emergency letter to Parliament. Now, an emergency letter still took 3 weeks to get across the ocean.
Right.
And then they had to like read it and defer and then send a letter back. Okay. And so
we're still talking like a period of 2 months from the time that Governor
Boy
whines that the poor people are unpouring themselves and the Brits are informed of this.
Yeah. So here's where things take a turn for the worse, okay? Because Parliament listened to Belcher because he was a royal governor appointed by the crown, right?
Right.
So they deemed that any money-raising ventures not endorsed by the crown or Parliament were illegal, and this was an extension of something called the Bubble Act. So then, not only is it illegal, they ordered that the bank directors be liable for the bank's obligations and that they immediately be paid in gold or silver.
As a reminder, the thing that they didn't have enough of.
They didn't have enough of.
In the first place.
And they are making now
the land bank.
over 150,000 pounds has been loaned out, and now 9 people are responsible for immediate repayment. And Samuel Adams Sr. was kind of singled out here. He invested because he was the richest guy on the thing, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And he invested all of his political capital and fortune into the land bank, which immediately left the family in ruin.
Good job.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't really your fault. It sounded like a good idea. And the governor was behind it when you first started. Yeah. So.
And then he just took all the blame. He was the scapegoat. And so our guy, Samuel Adams Jr.
Samuel Adams Jr. for the purposes of this episode.
He would have been around 18, 19 years old at the time, just graduated from Harvard. Right after all of this, Belcher is recalled as governor. Bad vibes in Boston and Massachusetts is totally broke again.
Yeah.
And so he's replaced with a new royal governor, William Shirley, who was
Shirley.
What?
just continue.
And William,
there's a niche group of people laughing right now, Tori.
Okay,
continue.
I'm really glad to hear that. So, William Shirley was more stern. Okay.
Good.
Yeah.
Did he have a backbone? Because the first one didn't.
Yeah, he did. So, recovering funds from the parliamentary order was slow going. Obviously, they had no silver or gold, and he was ready to prosecute those still in debt. And so the land bank lasted 16 months, and the fallout lasted decades because, you're going to love this, the debt could be inherited. It was.
And also, again, a reminder, you kind of have to reset where we are historically. At this point, you could still be arrested and imprisoned for debt, which is something that if you live in a Western nation, most of us can no longer do that. There are consequences for debt, but we cannot be arrested and thrown in jail for our debts.
Indefinitely. Yeah.
Right. And if we cack it, our kids are not saddled with that debt. In most cases, there are some select reasons why you might inherit your parents' mortgage if you want to keep the house. But if you don't want to keep the house, that is not your problem. The lenders are loaning it to an individual, not a lineage. And that is not what was happening in the 18th century.
Yeah.
If your granddaddy did something dumb with cows, it could still be your problem, technically.
Yeah. Yes. 100%. And so we're going to fast forward a little. Okay. Now we're in 1744. Okay. And the land bank was started in 1740. So 4 years later.
Collapsed 41. Partway into 41.
Yes. Okay. So Samuel Adams Sr. Is back in court again, trying to appeal the penalties. He spent the rest of his life in court. And his financial catastrophe ended in political popularity. And so he was elected into the House of Representatives.
Well, no, actually, that makes sense.
He was one of the directors who was trying to help the common people. Yeah. So he is elected. However, at the time, royal governors had the right to reject anyone. And he rejected him.
Right. Because, representation, that's how it works.
And so Samuel Adams Jr., for intents of this episode, pointed out that the king himself couldn't reject an appointment to the House of Lords. Why are the colonists treated so poorly? Okay. And he also went on to say that those who questioned authority soon saw themselves represented as a rude, low-lived mob. So,
I need to repeat it in the dramatic way. Those who questioned authority soon saw themselves represented as a rude and low-lived mob. Where have I heard that before?
I don't know. It's interesting.
Sorry. I gotta get a drink.
You good? You good?
I'm good.
Yeah. So, now we're going to fast forward again. Now it's 1747. And a fire has destroyed all of the logs and ledgers of the money owed from the land bank debacle.
Just a random oopsie daisy fire?
I do believe so. There, like everything I've read, there's no nefarious connections to it. They just like,
eyebrow of skepticism.
Yeah. There was lots of fires back then. Who knows?
Right. Everything was made out of wood.
Yeah.
Fires happen a lot. I get that, but eyebrow of skepticism that it just so happened to hit those records. I'm sure it destroyed a lot of other things too.
Yeah.
But.
I'm sure it did too, but they made a point of this one. This is a very well documented case from the 1740s.
There were a whole bunch of people going, "Oh no, that's so sad."
Samuel Adams Sr. called it an act of God. So,
did he later start an insurance company? Because they call lots of things acts of God.
It's it's just a circle. We're just coming full circle all the time. So at this time,
it's almost like we're not doing this podcast on accident.
Yeah. So Samuel Adams Jr. at this time, he becomes a market clerk. And that job is to verify that businesses are complying with town regulation. And a very bizarre part of this job that I was kind of laughing at is that part of this job was to keep bread and butter prices from being artificially inflated, specifically bread and butter.
It's like it was their version of gas wars. That's what he was in charge of preventing.
And but he was really
like a gas war when like 2 gas stations on each corner, one will raise it a penny, so the other one will drop it a penny. And
exactly. It's exactly like that. Yeah. Okay. And so he was very well liked. And that is a thing that will come up later when we get into the rabble rousing of Boston that Samuel Adams was behind a lot of. There were the British officials later in this history would say that the Bostonians listened to Samuel Adams more than the government. And we're
talking about the junior one this time.
Yes, we are talking about the father of the American Revolution who roused all the rabbles. And one of the reasons he was so well liked is that he believed that opinions of men on the street shouldn't be neglected. This is something that he read and very much held true to himself. And so people most directly impacted by the rules set on high should probably be paid attention to. Yeah. And so he very much respected everyone as people, and he didn't really care about the social hierarchy, which again will come up later in the funniest story. But at this time, okay, Boston got a little Boston-y, okay?
I already know where this is going. They're about to fight about something, aren't they?
Samuel Adams witnessed the story I'm about to tell you firsthand as he is a market clerk. So he is on the streets of Boston regularly to verify things.
He's in his early 20s at this point.
Yes. Okay. Yes. And so Admiral Charles Knowles of the British Regular Army shows up in Boston. And he showed up for conscription, which is the forced service into the armed service because he had lost some of his troops. He wanted to replace them. Like that's literally. And that's
how it
was a very normal practice in London. Boston met him with sticks and clubs.
Oh no, I am so shooketh.
And it was
Boston fought. I told you they were going to fight about something.
It gets even wilder. Okay, so they met him with sticks and clubs. This is the first time where thousands of Bostonians took to the streets. Okay, this is like a full riot.
Absolutely not. No one's getting on your boat, Knowlesy boy. Scoot on along. Go try Philly.
Now, our new Governor Shirley, fled because they started throwing bricks at his house through his windows. And so he called upon the militia to quell the riots just to find out that the militia and the people rioting are the same people. He's like, we need the militia.
Oh, we're already here. Run!
So the deputy sheriff was placed in the stocks.
Yes.
And our Admiral Knowles officers were taken hostage for 2 days before being paraded around town.
Shame. Shame. Shame.
And they sailed off 2 weeks later, Bostonianless. They were not able to conscript any troops. Boston was like, nah, man, we're not doing that. And this really sets the stage for the way that Boston continues to go.
Hey, Tori.
Yeah.
Hey, on your magic board, on our other podcast, we have a trauma dump button. I absolutely need you to build a button for Boston starts a riot because we're going to use it so much.
Yes, 100%. You have
Boston starts a riot.
You have no idea.
We need a button.
Yeah, Boston has the reputation they do for great reason, and I say that with the utmost respect. I love that city.
No, I love.
It is
Boston.
one of my favorite cities. But the attitude of Bostonians has been there since the beginning, and we love that.
So imagine here, we've had a very fancy Boston starts a riot sound.
We're gonna make it happen. And so Samuel Adams sees this in this violent riot for the first time. He's in his early 20s. And now when the revolution starts, right, when we really get into, we are moving towards the Continental Congress, and all, he is in his early 40s. Okay.
Right.
So
like this has been priming for a while.
This has been priming.
Listen, wars and conflicts prime for a while.
They sure do. And so our boy, Samuel Adams Jr., he, at this point, grew up and he had money. He grew up not a poor boy. He was in an affluent family with money. Mm-hmm. And he watched his dad go into financial ruin.
Yeah.
And now he has seen the way that this conscription has worked, and his dad is still fighting the courts, and all of this is happening. Okay. So now.
All because some guys made some administrative decisions, literally not talking to anybody else. One guy made a choice that I need to fill in my boat. No. Yeah. And one guy decided that, oh no, the political pressures are too much and I might lose my job. I need to fix this. Erased the income for thousands of people and scapegoated Sam Adams' daddy.
Yes. Yes. So now
one guy made a dumb choice and thousands of lives were impacted, ruined, and made worse. Uh-huh. One guy made stupid choice. I keep having to do that.
I don't know what that is. So now we're in 1748. So we're 1 year past those riots. Mm-hmm. And Samuel Adams Jr., the son, has started a newspaper because there is this new restriction of the press. And he names his newspaper the Independent Advertiser. And he says that this newspaper has no agenda or party, which was a lie because it was propaganda and it very much aligned, with a more progressive side. And
just another friendly, modern and historical reminder. Propaganda always functions on both sides.
Yes, 100%.
Propaganda always functions on both sides.
And so in his newspaper, because I think
Sam
propaganda
Adams starts a propaganda paper.
Yes. And propaganda has a very negative connotation, and it often is, but there is positive propaganda as well. Mm-hmm. And so he immediately starts these attacks on Governor Shirley. And one thing about Samuel Adams is the man never stopped writing. Like we know in Hamilton how they're constantly, why do you write like you're running out of time? Yeah. This man wrote under at least 15 pseudonyms. They are still trying to figure out all of the ones that he wrote out of. He'd be having arguments with himself in newspapers. Okay. We'll get to that later. But he starts attacks on Governor Shirley, and he is pointing out the constitutional rights as British subjects that the colonists are, like they are being violated. And this is my favorite part, okay? He defends the rioters and insisted that those people were all calmness and resignation. And if
Sammy,
he has a habit of doing this where he's like, what are you talking about? Nobody was rioting. No one was violent. And like, clearly they were. But he said that if the governor wouldn't protect his people and the state didn't care to defend their rights, then they had no choice but to assume the task themselves, which is very American.
I watched a video the other day where a woman was like, listen, I'm tired of people asking if I want help. Do it or move. You're not helping me do the dishes unless you're doing the dishes. Yeah. Do it or move. And I'm pretty sure that's where Sam Adams was coming from.
Yeah.
Do it or move and we'll handle it ourselves. Thank ya.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's this other article that was published in the same paper that read, there is no one thing which mankind are more passionately fond of, which they fight with more zeal for, which they possess with more anxious jealousy and fear of losing than liberty. Very great writer, right? And this is before he's really honed in his skill as a writer. And so then the same year, his dad dies. That's relevant. And the next year, 1749, he marries his first wife. Okay. Next year, 1750. We are 10 years past the land bank debacle. Samuel Adams Sr. has passed away. Samuel Adams Jr. appears in court to settle the land bank debts he inherited. And he proved it's settled, right? He brought all of the records. He proved that they had paid more than their fair share. Like, he had the books, the records. And he had said, if they had a right to audit my account, I might have the opportunity of being heard on it. So he thinks that all is settled. 1751, next year, there's a new committee. Nope, it's not settled. No.
Kidding.
Yep. And so he was brought back to the hearing for the land bank debts, and it ended less politely. And he really questioned their authority and was like, you guys haven't even looked at this stuff. If you looked at this, you would know we paid more than our fair share. And so then they investigate and they charge him with debt and crimes. He has to pay 219 pounds. Now, it's important to note that Samuel Adams likely never had close to that much money in his entire life. This man was a Harvard graduate who never had a job. And so he was treated horribly in court. He was not given his rights. He was denied any appeal. Anything that he did that was within his constitutional rights was denied. And privately, the members of the council, they saw his complaints as valid. Publicly, they sent the sheriff to seize all of his assets, which were worth 5 times what he owed. They were going to seize everything. It didn't matter that it was worth 5 times. They were going to take it all. And it could have been, he could have had way more, and they still would have taken it all. This was I feel like an example making situation. They targeted him. And so now he is fighting homelessness, and he has a 5-week-old and a 4-year-old.
Okay.
At which point, so this is in 56, right? This is in 1756. He's elected tax collector, which is the worst possible job they could have given him. Now, tax collector was an elected position, and most people did not want it. And so this is one of my favorite petty things of Boston.
The tax collector for the British government was literally knocking on doors saying, hey, I recognize that there's a giant hole in your roof and your children look emaciated. You owe me $5.
Yeah, so he would go and he would see the situation and he would let them off. And so, it's an elected position. And so one of my favorite petty things that they would do is they would purposefully elect the elite and elect the big officials because they would have to pay. You could pay to get out of it, right? And so they would purposely do this to them to make them have to pay money too, because, if you're poor, you couldn't get out of it. So, that's just still, it's like a circle. We're back. So he is being a tax collector, which is paid because based on the taxes you collect, you get a part of that,
you get
right?
A percentage, which is where a lot of the issues with tax collectors came from is you would get 10% and then you would actually charge them a little more. So your 10% was prettier. Yeah.
So he is doing this job. Now we're in the next year. It is now
1757.
Yes, 1757. And his wife passed away 3 weeks after giving birth to a baby that didn't make it.
Double whammy.
And now he's a single dad, and they are still trying to take his estate.
A 1-year-old and a 5-year-old, BT dubs.
Yep.
If my math is right.
Yep. And so the sheriff.
And also grief.
Yes. And because here's the thing too, he was a very early feminist. He really valued his wife. He didn't remarry for 7 years, which is unheard of at the time. He was an incredibly affectionate father. He truly adored his babies. And so he's a single dad widower they're trying to take his estate. And so Sheriff Greenleaf, who I have mentioned to you before.
Yes,
shows up to try to take his stuff again. And even said to Samuel Adams, he was even like, sometimes the law gets it wrong, but I got a job to do, right?
Like, well, listen, buddy, I'm super sorry about this, but I kind of got it because I want my job, even if you're cool with losing yours.
Yeah. Yeah. And you have to think this is now 1757. So this is 17 years after the whole thing. And in addition, all
like
of the
a
records,
decade after his dad died.
and over a decade after all of the records of it burned. And they're still doing this, right? So the
Just making it up at this point.
sheriff shows up at his house so that they can auction up his, his estate.
Yeah.
So Samuel Adams attended this auction and he threatened the sheriff and all who should attempt to enter upon the estate under pretense of sale, amongst other things, right? He was very, very big on the threats here, so much so that he prevented the sale and kept the estate, and the debt remained unsettled.
Basically what happened was they're like, hey, here's this whole house, wander through it, pick and choose what you want, pay us, and you get a cool thing, and we get money that goes to the debt that we have imagined this family owes us. And Sam Adams was, nuh-uh, so he stood fully armed, Rambo in the door and went, enter and die.
Yes, precisely.
Okay.
Yeah. And enough that they were like, okay, like you can keep your estate this time. Yeah. They're
keep
like,
your candlesticks fair.
Yeah. You can keep it this time. We'll be back later. It's okay. We see it's a bad time. It's fine. It's fine. You do your thing. It's all right. I get it. Yeah. Bye. Okay. So the next year, 1758, you remember our protege of our Belcher man, Thomas Hutchinson? He becomes a lieutenant governor. So he's not a royal governor because he's a colonist.
Right.
But he becomes the lieutenant governor. And in that same year, Samuel Adams loses his mom. And he is still a tax collector. Okay.
And a single dad.
And so that is where I am going to.
And deeply lost in grief because his wife passed.
Yes. And his mom.
And that was mom.
And his brother, too. I didn't even mention that.
Sammy!
I know. And then they're trying to take his house. Like, I don't blame him for threatening the sheriff in this moment, right?
No, honestly, it makes all the sense.
Yeah. I support. So that is where I'm ending our timeline this moment. But I need you to know that the land bank debacle stayed on the Massachusetts House agenda until 1770. 30 years. Literally, there were generations of families who continued to be poor and having to fight off this debt because of something that Governor Belcher endorsed from the beginning. Who
still lost his job, by the way. Who still, I would like to remind from half an episode ago, lost his job.
Well, so here's the fun part. When they got recalled, when the royal governors got recalled, they oftentimes would just be sent to a new colony. So in Samuel Adams' 60s, he would say of the way that all of this impacted his life and the way the government impacted his life, let the people keep a watchful eye over the conduct of their rulers. For we are told that great men are not at all times wise. Now, John Adams, his cousin, future second president, and Thomas Hutchinson, and others credited the land bank debacle with Samuel Adams' radicalization and deep love for liberty.
Turns out you can't ruin an entire man's entire life without him having some thoughts about it.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah. And so here's where we're headed. Okay. Eventually, Samuel Adams ends up 8,000 pounds in debt because of his lack of collecting taxes. However, as I mentioned before, he was very popular with people. So essentially the equivalent of a colonial GoFundMe was started to pay off his debts. And John Hancock made the biggest contribution. And this is before they were in cahoots.
I was going to say, are we getting a bromance? Are we getting the start of a bromance here?
They were very hot and cold with each other. They were like an on again, off again bromance.
But that's like Love Island kind of romances. We dig it.
Yeah. And John Hancock was considered a class traitor. So we'll be getting into that. So I wanted to lay the foundation for the father of the American Revolution. And now we're going to start. Samuel Adams.
And his bestie times, John Hancock.
Yeah.
Do we get John Hancock next episode?
I'm thinking we will. I'm thinking we will. And we're going to be building and seeing the relationships and how these people interacted, because the stories that we've heard, like the Boston Tea Party and the Boston Massacre, and
there's
the
details we don't know, but the people are really important.
We know the events, right? We know what those things are, but we don't get told the story of how we got to those points and the people involved. And that is the most interesting part. Like the Boston starts a riot button will be used so often. Okay. So to everyone here, thank you for listening to Founded. I hope you found something interesting. See what I did there? That was funny. Puns. Drop an email at foundedhistory@gmail.com and let me know what you want to find out about next. But don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a rating. And next time we might talk about the Sugar Act, but I can't guarantee it. It probably won't happen. I'll find something else. I'm going to dig deeper. Maybe we'll even make it to the 1760s.
We had a 0 Benjamin Rush count episode today, too.
Do you need one? Do you need a Benjamin Rush fact?
No, I don't know.
Okay.
No, it's got to happen organically.
Yeah, you're
it doesn't
right.
count.
You're right.